This was a sweet Firebird. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Take a look at this beautiful thing from 1990. If you're new to the show, I collect early 90s Firebirds because they made some really interesting colors. For example, there's a Snakeskin inspired run, of which I have a red and black one in my collection, but then I really like the bursted ones. I've got Barney in my collection, but I've seen a few of the other hues out there. And the whole reasoning behind why so many cool custom colors exist at this period of time is because that's when the Firebird got brought back. So to drive up interest at NAMM shows and other trade shows, they would do these exotic colors. So imagine my surprise when this beauty shows up. It's a great blue sparkle. Granted, maybe not as crazy and fancy and out there as some of the other ones that we just saw, but for me it's all about the celluloid pickguards on these things. It's a love and hate situation because you should not leave those on the guitars if you're keeping them stored away in a case because they will off-gas, they'll shrink, they'll destroy the plating on your hardware and pickups, and the finish of the guitar. But this one brought me back to the Basalt Blue Sparkle Deluxe. So I was like blending two of my different loves, but then I saw this. It's labeled as a custom shop original, meaning it was some sort of a one-off. The stamp was used from roughly late 1982 until early 1994. As an added bonus, we even have the Moto backplate, and obviously the blue finish going on everywhere. So how much do you think this thing was? If I remember correctly, when it was first listed, it was like $20,000, to which I was like, no, this is why I hate talking about things I love. But the seller wasn't getting too much interest, so he would drop it by a couple thousand, then another 5,000, because I had floated him an offer that I thought was pretty fair. And we were getting so close to it, I thought for sure this story was going to have a happy ending, but no, now it's listed as ended. Now whether he decided not to sell it, or if somebody purchased it, I don't know. But according to this guy, it was done up for the January 1990 NAMM show, so it lines up exactly with what I talked about earlier. But he has some insider knowledge that apparently 5 Sparkle Firebird 5s were made that year. A red sparkle, a green, this one, the blue, gold, and silver. I would love to see that green sparkly one. But then he also goes on saying that he knows that most of those were then taken from the NAMM show and sent off to famous people. Apparently G.E. Smith used the gold one on Saturday Night Live in '93, and this blue one was initially destined to Peter Wolf of the Jay Giles Band. It looks like this one's been relatively well cared for, maybe not stored in its case all that time since we don't see too much off-gassing and not too much playware. So we'll have to keep our eyes out for the other ones. But here was another interesting opportunity. Listed by Orange County Guitars on Reverb, it was an old mod collection find under the Black Lace name. So essentially, when you get really up on top of this, there's a lace pattern underneath, kind of like a smoky silver burst. But from far away, it just kind of looks like a silver burst that has a little bit of a gray tint to it, but maybe with like a bit of a golden sparkle. This is one of those cool mod collection guitars where the uncovered pickups and black plastics really work. And honestly, at his price of $4,500, it wasn't too bad. But I do notice that's really strange that they got paint on the binding. But then when he moved on to the backside, it was just straight up black with a 2021 serial number. But here was another really unique opportunity. A rare Tuxedo custom, 20th anniversary version, for sale as a Husk? That's not something you ever hear of. Custom colors being stripped down and just sold for parts. I mean, I could understand like if this thing had a neck crack or other serious issues, but a guitar like this, you're most certainly better off selling it with some parts. But you know, now that I'm taking a second look at it, I'm not quite certain that's the original top finish. Those cavities look repainted to me. Because we just recently documented one of these. Usually the Gibson ones actually have a pretty light finish that you can still vaguely see through. But this is what you're normally looking for, masked off areas that the factory would do, because they didn't want to get their channel routes all gunked up with paint, presumably to help them get the wires through there. And this particular one has the kind of see-through white finish, so we can still see the maple top, one of the pancake layers, and the mahogany body. Now, I'm not saying they're all masked exactly the same, but something definitely looks suspicious about that. That's the thing about Tuxedo customs. They're a little bit tricky to verify if you don't know, because somebody can just paint a black custom white on the top and then nobody would ever know. Looking at the backside of our headstock, we can see our serial number. Looks like this one originally had the waffle back tuners, but someone has reamed it out and installed Grovers on it. And we've got a brass nut. And then looking into our truss rod, it's not uncommon to find glue seepage around here, but paint like that. That looks a bit strange. Reading through our description, they do mention an old headstock repair that's unnoticeable, so perhaps maybe that's what that's part of. But if that was a refinish, it's definitely pretty old because it looks just like the original. But that's just my opinion. It's certainly an authentic 1974. I just have some questions to that top coat, and it was available at $4,000 but has since ended. But next up, another mod collection guitar that surfaced. This was one of the more unique ones. It was not all that long ago, but Gibson's stock photography made it look so dark. This definitely helps show it. So it actually has a really dark burst pattern to it, but then they give it a faux neck through vibe by painting one white stripe down the center, complemented by two on either side. Then you get like a cherry color before they expose like a natural walnut look. This particular angle is cool because they actually put that center stripe up onto the neck, which is not something they had to do. And then of course they also continue that design on the back. This is one of the more interesting double cuts they've done, because generally speaking, I'm not all that intrigued by the double cut. But this one has a certain it factor, especially because they continued it onto the back, even on the neck, believe it or not. But this one is serialized as DS0077. And he even linked my video, which is perfectly fine. You guys can do that. That's kind of why they exist, to document the mod collection. They kind of get lost to time after the listings get taken down. Now, as far as finding your old guitar in the recap, yeah, that's going to be a little bit difficult. Although, if you do remember the official name, a Google search might pull it up, because in the episode guides, we try to put the official titles to help people find them in the future. But this one was originally listed at $3,800. And then before it ended on Reverb, it was down to $2,750. I even put an offer in on it, but it looks like it found a different home. But now here's a real interesting one from Diablo Guitars. I was curious if this would sell for their asking price or not. It was a whopping $10,000, a custom color E2. If you're not familiar, the E2 was a late 70s, early 80s thing. It's a slightly sculpted Explorer that has two different body woods to it. You're either going to have the walnut top with the maple center stripe, which is also continued onto the back, so they're technically 5-piece bodies. And then you also have the 5-piece neck of the same woods, or you can find the inverse. You can have the maple on the outside and the walnut on the interiors. I'd really like one of each for my collection, because I just find them oddly fascinating and much more stylistically pleasing than the V2. But then Diablo uncovers this thing. It's green. Now personally, I've always hated the custom color E2s because I love the wood. I like the combinations that they do, so when you paint that over, it becomes a little less special. But at the same time, in the collector's sense, finding a rare finish is really cool. For example, the Lysic collection just looks fantastic because it's like every single custom color of 80s and 70s and 60s Flying Vs all thrown into one photo. And then you can't forget his fabulous V2 shot. I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions here. I like the wood of the E2, but not as much on the V2. So that's why I think the custom colors actually work better on this particular model when you can't see the layers. But anyways, back to our E2, you just don't see them in custom colors that often. But this one had to have been a custom order with a Kaler put on it. But it looks like he got somewhere around that price because the listing has ended, which means probably sold on his website. That was a cool find, Parker. Now let's take a break from like really cool custom colors, rare pieces, to one that's just unique. So this is a 2022 Les Paul Special in a cherry finish. And the woods just do not match up. But yet at the same time, it's endearing. It's the ugly duckling. I'm sure someone in the comments can tell us all the technical terms about the wood, but basically they didn't match it right. So if you look at it at different angles, it might actually not be as apparent that it's a super two-piece body. It's just the woods are reflecting the light in different ways. Like when you look on the back, yeah, you can tell this one's a little bit darker, but it would all just depend on how you hold the guitar. But since you usually view something straight on like this, it just has an endearing quality to it. So I figured it was worth sharing. And sometimes being different is good because it looks like it inspired somebody to actually want to play this. I mean, it's got nicks and dings. This was definitely used on stage. And it's got some buckle worming on the back. But that one sold at CME for $1,360. But now let's go back to beauty. We've got Ryan's Guitars and Gear listed in a pretty cool 71 Deluxe. I mean, from this photo, it almost looks like a one-piece top, but if you get really close in there, nah, there's at least one seam line there. I would assume one right there. Flip to a new angle. Yep, we got him. But it looks so good at this angle, especially with the blue case. The early to mid-70s blue interior case just makes all the colors look good. That's part of the reason why I love that 1980 Artisan in my collection, even though that's not technically a Gibson case. But at least this has like a nice wide center seam. And you know, I thought I was crazy, but I'm not. I could have swore I saw the Gibson embossing on the bridge pickup, and the truth of that case is they're both the embossed. Man, that was a good piece. No wonder this ended up selling, especially because we don't have the goof hider rings. But here you can see why they started to put those rings on, because their routes were a little bit too big. As far as 70s Deluxe go, that was a pretty nice example. Even well kept on the back. A little bit of delamination on our pancake body, but that's nothing to be scared of. And a small chip on our neck. And some strap wear. But it did have quite a proud price at $7,800. Cool find, Ryan. But now check out this rare one from the Guitar Broker. It's a white Les Paul Custom, not necessarily impossible to find, but it's from 1985. And I've always said I've never seen a factory stock chrome hardware white Les Paul Custom from the 70s or 80s. And by golly, I think I finally found one. You know, it's Stormtrooper vibes. The best way to tell if it's factory chrome and not somebody just replacing parts later on is you want to look at the studs in the body. Usually people don't bother replacing those, and this one passes that test. The next thing you'd want to do is pop the pickups and look at the covers to see if they've ever been disturbed. Now, if somebody's really good at solder work, they could fool you, and it's still possible this one is a conversion, but being 1985, if you look up here, it's actually got the correct posi-lock buttons on it, and it's got the chrome tuners. I'd be willing to believe this one was factory stock, which is insanely cool to me, because I like to collect Les Paul Customs of this era. And the icing on the cake of this one is the fact that we still have the Tim Shaw PAF stickers on it. Very cool, because it looks like it was only lightly played. I was hoping the price would come down about $1,000, but at the end of the day, I think it was worth it, because everything looks good there. And the only thing you have to put up with is a little bit of stand rash on the neck. This was another screaming deal on a custom. I don't know what I was thinking not buying this. So it's Harvest Gold version 2 for under $5,000, which is a really good deal. It's got the diamond posi lock buttons on sideways, but whatever. It's got the 3.2 pneumatic bridge, probably has the Tim Shaw PAFs. Finding these things in clean condition is a pretty difficult task, and this one seems to line up. Honestly, it just seemed like too good of a deal to be true. I mean, it even has the flip-out winding tuners. Now, I can actually tell the tuners have been replaced, but it looks like they just put the original flip-out winding heads onto those, and it's the same tuner, so it doesn't really matter, since the footprint is the same. But no, the reason why this one was cheap is not because of any of this finish checking or anything. That's honestly nothing too much to worry about. We even have photos verifying that we've got the Tim Shaw PAFs. But no, it's because some bonehead put some sort of a trapeze tailpiece on it at one point in time. Why? Were they trying to make it like an ES295? And I let this scare me away from this example for some reason, but you just plug those holes, have somebody maybe touch it up. Do you ever even look down there? No, everything else was fine. It was Division Street Guitars that sold this, but it lasted like over a month. This one had come up for sale right when the market started to slow down in late 2023, so I think that's why it lasted as long as it did. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day. And you might even enjoy this next one.